The United Kingdom government lifted a 3-year ban against Bain Company consultancy firm on Tuesday, just 7 months after imposing the sanction. Let's get some reaction now from Lord Peter Hain, who's a former UK cabinet minister who testified also at the State Capture Commission. Thank you so much for making time for us, Lord Peter Hain. So when Bain Company was banned by both the UK and South African governments, it was commendable, right? You worked very hard to put pressure on the UK government. How do you feel about this about turn?
Sick, frankly. They turned on their head and had a specious excuse to allow Bain to continue to work for the British government here. It made no sense. Bain has not done anything to comply with either the Judicial Commission under Judge Robert Nugent, nor has it done anything to comply with the findings of the Zondo Commission under the now Chief Justice. It has not admitted its culpability for not only the way that it deliberately disabled the South African Revenue Service, the tax collecting agency under former President Zuma, on his personal instructions, but also earned big fat fees in a number of other state-owned enterprises, including Eskom and Transnet and others that we know are riddled with corruption and certainly were at the time that they were working for former President Zuma. And until they come clean about this, and until there's an accounting, and until the law follows its course, because of course they were recommended for prosecution by Zondo, then they shouldn't be doing business for any British government, or frankly any government across the world that is any interest in combating corruption and money laundering, which Bain were implicated in.
Yeah, the UK government says, and they seem to believe, that Bain Company has cooperated with their investigation, and they've also just even provided information on how they've actually corrected things in the company. And apparently the company has also agreed to actually be watched very closely. Do you think that that is enough?
No, I don't. These are all words. They don't actually add up to anything until, as I say, Bain comes clean about what it did, puts in place procedures to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Who's to say they won't do this in another country? Who's to say they won't do it in South Africa again if they're given the opportunity? So it's imperative that instead of wriggling some warm words out of the British government, which seemed to fall over itself into their laps, having taken a good stand, which I commended at the time after I had put pressure on them last August to ban Bain for 3 years, it doesn't really add up at all. You just ask Judge Robert Nugent whether he thinks that Bain is complying. You ask the leading counsel from the Zondo State Capture Commission whether he thinks that Bain is complying. You ask the Director General of the National Treasury whether he thinks Bain is complying, and they'll all say no. And I agree with them. And it was a major move forward when Bain were forced to feel the pain that resulted from their nefarious activities, illegal activities, the Zondo Commission found in South Africa, and they felt the pain in London, as I think they should have in New York and Washington and Beijing and Delhi and anywhere else in the world too.
So my understanding is that, Bain and Co. South Africa will remain excluded from bidding for government contracts until next year. But what difference does that make?
Well, the UK government contracts, but to be perfectly frank, they weren't. I mean, the UK government operates in the UK.
Exactly. Hence I'm asking what difference is it going to make, because it's
nothing. Nothing at all. I mean, the only conceivable work that Bain could have done for the UK in South Africa would have presumably been some minor contract with the High Commission, which would have been very small beer. I mean, Bain deals in multi-million contracts, in hundreds of millions that it dealt with under the state capture episode under former President Zuma. It doesn't do any work for the UK government in South Africa, so this is just a nonsense, frankly.
Should the UK government take comfort in the fact that Bain has not been prosecuted in South Africa yet? And when this ban happened, Lord Peter Hain, it set an important precedent where companies knew that they can't just blame individuals for corrupt and irregular deals and evade accountability. Do you think with this decision the UK government has taken, all of that has been undone?
Yes, frankly, they blinked first. Bain threatened judicial action, which I never believed was real. There's no way they would have gone to court and faced a string of witnesses. Myself, if I'd been called, Athol Williams, the brave whistleblower who used to work for Bain and has been shamefully hounded by the company, by Bain, out of South Africa into the UK, where he doesn't have a job. So that's another thing that they should make amends on. But to be frank, they haven't changed anything at all. They are still facing prosecution in South Africa. The fact that it hasn't happened yet, we know that the National Prosecuting Authority has got piles of dossiers, anti-corruption dossiers on its desks, and it is working through those. It's no excuse at all for the British government to say that Bain is not actually implicated in court action as of today. But I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
Or else the Zondo Commission wouldn't have recommended it for prosecution. It's in a queue with a lot of other cases resulting from the state capture decade.
Yeah. Is there any other way to challenge this latest decision? And what do you think is the message that this decision sends out, especially to whistleblowers like Athol Williams and many others who blew the lid on the shenanigans at Bain and Company?
Well, it's a complete betrayal of Athol, who showed a Cape Town boy who showed great courage and sense of principle and integrity, which has been sadly lacking, all of those from Bain's behaviour. He's shown great bravery, and we know what's happened to whistleblowers in South Africa recently. Only last week, a father and son were assassinated. And others have been killed or hounded and intimidated into silence. Those people need protecting. And I think that the South African government, from the presidency downwards, should protect them, because they're the people who keep the country true, or trying to do so. And I also think the British government's flip on its head sends a very bad signal out to the rest of the world, which is a company like Bain, which hasn't apologized, which hasn't made amends, is still facing legal proceedings inside South Africa, that it can get away with it. And if it can get away with it inside South Africa, then where else can it get away with it? And maybe it is doing so now. These corporates who were part of the state capture corruption story, looting the country of billions and billions of rands. So some estimates suggest a fifth of the country's wealth was hammered as a result of this decade of corruption, which is a terrible indictment. I mean, they should feel the pain, instead of which they seem to be getting off scot-free, and Britain should hang its head in shame.
Let's hope that's not going to be the case in South Africa. The government won't feel the pressure to somehow follow suit.
I'm sure it won't. I'm sure it will stand firm on this.
Yeah. Lord Peter Hain, thank you for making time for us this afternoon.
Thank you.